ladies and gentlemen, the ministers here. It's so the IISc, once again, for the ministers' benefit, is a program at the University of Chicago. To keep it very quick, we place young professionals in various government departments around the country. They work on multinational teams of about 4 or 5 each. To actually strengthen the implementation arm of the government, in addition to providing strategic advice. So the teams work, on various stages of projects, from design to implementation to impact assessment. We have 23 members of our current cohort here, a couple of members of our future cohort, and a few members from our past cohort as well. And I do hope you will ask the minister questions based on your own experiences in government. The topic for today's event, as the board here very clearly says, is innovating in government. This is based on one of the IISc's core beliefs that governments are inherently not innovative, but they are inherently innovative, but they face constraints, and we need to work towards ameliorating those as we implement policy. Our guest today, our speaker today, couldn't be more ideal, and it truly is an honor to welcome Mr. Piyush Goyal. And we often say that about many politicians, many ministers, but in this case, it can be backed up with some facts. I won't read out his whole bio because we don't have the time for that, but we also know all of those details. But I will state a few facts. Mr. Goyal, of course, comes from a range of backgrounds. He's been a CA, he's been an investment banker, and he has a background in law. And as the current government has completed 2 years in office, in the past 2 weeks, several commentators have rated him as one of the top performers, if not the best minister in the current government. Last year, per a survey of chairpersons, CEOs, CFOs, and MDs, his ministries were rated the best in the government. He was also awarded the Economic Times Top Performer Award last year. It is key to point out that the ministry he leads is not one, but several. He leads coal, power, and new and renewable energy, which was not the case in the past. And finally, according to news reports, Mr. Goyal is a tough taskmaster who sits with his team while they burn the midnight oil. A bureaucrat recalled how they prepared the coal ordinance in 3 sleepless nights. Of course, as much as we innovate in government, there's some things we just can't innovate on, like meetings going over time, like the meeting the minister was just in, and I'm going to, with that, pass it on to him to speak about, how he is innovating in his department and how he thinks governments can innovate more broadly.
This government works seamlessly. In this government, if you come up with a good environment-related idea, I can equally well pick up the phone and talk to Mr. Javadekar. Or if you have a good finance-related idea, I can certainly talk to the finance minister. But if you have a good monetary policy idea, you can reach your colleague directly. You don't need to come to me. Well, clearly it's a very exciting thought and something which over the years, governments at their own peril have completely ignored and neglected. India loves to work with the mindset of chalta hai, for those of you who know Hindi, or let the status quo remain. We shouldn't try to do anything drastically different. And in fact, that mindset very often becomes an impediment to innovation, to change, to improvements. And that's how typically the world moved in India for many, many years. Not to say that nothing good happened. A lot of good happened in 70 years or 69 years. Nobody can deny that. But the aspirations of the people and the gap between what is needed and what we have is so large that the pace at which we've seen innovation in India is truly inadequate. Inadequate is a very sober word, if you ask me. When Prime Minister Modi became the head of the government, I remember in one of our first interactions, he had just often throws a concept and then allows you to pick it up if you are really sharp. He had said, till when is India going to follow the world? I think it's time India should lead the world. And in some sense, it set the mind thinking that does India always need to be dependent on the West or developed countries to come up with new concepts, to come up with innovation? In fact, for those of you from, let's say, America, if at all there is any one defining feature which differentiates the United States from the rest of the world, or one factor which is keeping that economy going on a roll, it's innovation. It's their R&D labs. It's the fact that they're always at the cutting edge of technology, improvising and always 2 steps ahead of the rest of the world. And most others seem to be catching up. Of course, there are other inventions which Europe comes up with, which Japan comes up with, all of that is there. But on a larger canvas, the United States has gained the most for being at the cutting edge of technology, for investing big bucks into R&D, for always innovating and remaining ahead of the curve. Should not a country like India, which has 1 billion plus people, which has some of the finest educational institutions, I'm told, I don't know how far that's accurate, NASA has more Indian scientists than possibly we have in our own labs over here, or in our own space research program. Wherever I go, whichever institute of excellence I've been to in so many years, I've found Indians in large measure. But they got the environment over there to be able to innovate, to be able to do things to scale, to be able to let their mind and thoughts explore new horizons. Sadly, we in India were never willing to let this kind of culture prevail. I come across so many people who tell me that, look, we've got this brilliant idea, but we are not able to get it through the bureaucratic circle into testing stage or into even further development with government labs or government assistance. And in my own 2 years of experience, I've found that this bureaucracy is something which has come out of probably years of doing things in a particular fashion, which nobody has tried to address. In fact, in my own ministry, I have a rule. It's not a written rule, but it's known to all my colleagues. Never ever come and tell me. I'm not trying to clone Arnab Goswami, but never ever ever tell me how things were done before 26th of May 2014. I just don't want to know. I just don't want you to tell me the file moved in this fashion, schemes were made in this fashion, approvals were done like this. It's all passé. Let's look at everything afresh. And to my mind, that's helped us think through a lot of very, very big challenges that we've encountered in the last 2 years, most of which were legacy issues, which we've been able to address with significant success. Certainly, I can't claim that everything is going right. I mean, I was mentioning this morning at a press conference when the lights went off in the middle of the conference today. Yeah, it's happening a lot in Delhi, despite the fact that 3 weeks ago, I called the power officials of Delhi government with their power secretary. Tell me what I can do to help you if you have any problems to take care of the growing power needs in summer. 3 weeks back. And they were absolutely, we don't want you at all. We've got it all sorted out. I said, fine then. I mean, I can't force myself on them. It's a federal structure. It's an independent state. And in the middle of the press conference, the light went off. Rather than my 2 years achievements, I think the papers tomorrow are going to talk about that. Another legacy that I inherited, but well, it'll take some more time till I can get all states to work with the speed with which Mr. Modi wants us to work. But I'll share an example which relates to innovation and which relates to the change of mindset. I knew a Professor Jhunjhunwala, I don't know if any of you know of him, Ashok Jhunjhunwala, IIT Chennai. Madras has changed to Chennai. I think you are still in Chicago, I think. IIT Chennai Professor Jhunjhunwala is an innovator himself. I believe his mind is always wandering with new ideas. He used to be on the board of State Bank with me, and that's how I know him. And I think at that time he had never dreamt, I had never dreamt that I'll have this position. But for years now, he's been working on a technology to take power through a separate line to every establishment, every home, which will be a DC line. You're all aware that electric current comes through a AC line to our homes and even to this center. But he said, suppose we were able to give a DC connection to every home in the country, we can ensure that the country will never have a blackout. It will only have a brownout in the worst situation. So however much the stress, whatever may be the extent of cyclone that comes, maybe the Hudud in Visakhapatnam, or that cyclone in Delhi 2 days after I became a minister. If any of you are from Delhi, 29th, 30th May 2014, there was those huge thunderstorm and whatnot. And for many days after that, I used to be out at 3 o'clock in the night, like a night owl, checking the work happening all over the city to restore power in Delhi. What people called baptism by fire at that time. So he said, why, we can actually look at this program, and I've done it in IIT Chennai for a few homes, and it works. So even if power goes off, you can ensure that the DC current comes, and with that the LED lights and LED fan, some LED appliances work on DC, or your mobiles can be charged. Right? I thought that was a brilliant idea. So, and actually, to be honest with you, and just like I was late today, he's been seeking time from me for many months. This is about a year ago. He was seeking time from me. I was not able to give time. So he flew from Mumbai to Delhi on a flight. And that's lovely time because the mobiles don't work. So it's uninterrupted attention. You can focus on a subject. We spent those 2 hours. I thought that was a thought worth considering. I don't know how relevant it is now that we've been able to move from an energy deficient state, shortages to surplus. And I see surpluses continuing for years. So it may not be entirely relevant today, but I love innovation. I love to explore with new ideas. So he said that, we landed in Delhi. I said, can you stay back? We'll have an extensive discussion. I like the idea. He said, I have no clothes, I have nothing. I said, I'll buy you new clothes if you're willing to stay back. He said, no, it'll be better we do it next week and I'll get all the IIT directors and all involved. So we scheduled it for the week after. 6 IIT directors came in. Several other eminent scientists came in from all over the country. Some names you may know, Dr. Anil Kakotkar, for instance. And yeah, then I'll build up another second story. Not that I'm a storyteller, but like you do case studies in your program. It always helps to understand how we are thinking. Anyway, we had this at the IIC, I think. I think it was the IIC or the Indian Habitat Center, because that's what government can afford. And we had a lovely engagement from morning till lunch, where we brainstormed it. They were asking me, let's do a pilot with 1,000 homes. I said, no, 1,000 home pilot will never get us anywhere. We'll never be able to figure out the success or failure. So we finally did 3 pilots. A pilot for a village, a pilot for a small town, not a small town I'll say, but very, very small town, so 5,000. So one was 1,000 homes, one was 5,000 homes, and I said I want one of 100,000 homes. If you're doing a pilot, do it to some scale. That's when you can figure out its benefits, good or bad. Right? 1,000 would have given us a theoretical knowledge, but I couldn't have applied it on a massive scale. They said it'll cost a hell of a lot of money. I said money is no constraint. We've invested 80 crores in that program, and 80 crores of public money. But I believe that if at all it works out, and if we are able to make it pan-India successful to scale, imagine the comfort that all of us will have, that we'll never get into complete darkness. Or in the worst of summer, if our air conditioners don't work, at least that brownout line, the DC line, would have ensured that the fans worked, or there's basic lighting, or the microwave, DC microwave, or a DC television. Today you want to be connected 24/7. That will work. Your mobile can get charged even if for 5 days after a cyclone in Visakhapatnam there's no electricity. But your mobile can be charged and you can remain connected. Small thing, but has huge potential. But now there's a willingness in India to innovate. If we are successful, we'll be the first country in the world to do it. Right? That's what Prime Minister said. India should lead. not necessarily wait for somebody else to do something and then we'll follow. Look at the, and yeah, I was saying the second story linked to this. At lunch on that day, since Kakotkar ka naam aaya, I remembered it. While we were having lunch, Dr. Kakotkar came up to me and he said, this was a great decision. But you know, there's one thing that I have been trying to suggest to your ministry for the last 2 years. A solar thermal project be carried out along with IIT Jodhpur to develop that technology indigenously and see if we can make it competitive and use it more extensively, because solar has this limitation of daytime power, whereas solar thermal helps you create that storage within the system and gives you 24 hours power. I spontaneously at lunch with a table on both with a plate in both our hands, I said, great, let's do it. How much does it cost? He said 200 crores. And 2 years I've been trying to struggle with the idea. I remember I gave my plate to Niranjan, who's here somewhere around, unless he's there. I gave my plate to him, picked up my phone, called up the NTPC chairman. I said, are you in the office? He said, yes. So I asked Dr. Kakotkar, can you go and meet him right now? He said, I have a 5 o'clock flight. And I remember, and with which you can figure out the date also, it was around September 15, because that was the last day of Ganesh Visarjan, Ganpati Visarjan, for those of you who come from Mumbai or Maharashtra. And it's a big festival in Maharashtra. I keep it at home also, but mine had already happened. It was the last day of Ganpati Visarjan. So he said, I have to get back to Pune today, because mera Ganpati Visarjan karna. I have to go and immerse the idol in the water. So I said, what time is your flight? He said, it's 5. It was about 3 at that time. I said, then just leave it and rush. The office is 10 minutes away. The NTPC chairman is waiting for you. Explain the whole thing to him and then we'll sort it out. So actually Dr. Kakotkar left his meal. And I think I arranged my car to take him there. I got another secretary. Of course, again, Arnab will criticize it for VIP culture or whatever. But I made sure that the airline was informed to keep the boarding pass ready and not to go without Dr. Kakotkar till he reaches the airport. Kakotkar ji went to NTPC, discussed the whole thing. In the next board meeting of NTPC, they approved 200 crores for this project. I just met Dr. Kakotkar in Pune recently. I asked him what's happening on that project. He said, Piyush, I feel very disappointed to tell you that I couldn't take it forward and the IIT was not able to come up to expectation. I'm looking to do it somewhere else. And therefore, there's been a 1-year delay. I don't know, was it 15? No, it was 14, I think. It was Ganpati 2014, soon after I'd become a minister. So it's now 1.5 years since then, since we approved it. Yeah, it was 2014. If it was 15, I would have remembered it. It's only 6 months ago. It's 2014 Ganpati. I just come into government at that time. There's so much possibilities, so much that India can do, we can lead in. We needed to change the mindset. And I remember in one of my recent interviews, as we are talking to people about the 2 years achievements, somebody asked me, what would you call as the biggest achievement of this government? And my answer was the change in mindset. The fact that today the country is talking of, or the country is willing to be optimistic, the country is willing to expect, the country has that self-confidence we can do it, which 2 years ago was that doom and gloom scenario, that pessimism or cynicism. Of course, you can see a lot of that if you are a television viewer, even today. There is hardly any space or any traction for good news. Because it's not, in this young audience I can possibly use the word, otherwise very scared to use the word. It's not the SE 4-letter word, you know. It's very boring to give good news. Right? So it's sensational to talk about, not that it's a very sad thing if a child falls into a tube well, but I don't know whether we can keep watching that frame for 48 hours. While there's so much more happening in a country of 1 billion plus people. But be that as it may, that's not something I can control or wish to regulate. It's a free world. Everybody's free to talk about whatever they like. But the fact is that there's this huge change of mindset that India today is witnessing. I often jokingly say, even a beggar will only go and beg from somebody he believes has the money in his pocket to give. He won't go to another beggar to ask, right? The very fact that the people of India today expect phenomenal results or a golden magic wand to do everything yesterday, the very fact that the expectations are high, the very fact that the bar of achievement is now being set at very high levels, the very fact that the people are demanding more and more and more and wanting more performance, the very fact that the press or the people, and they've been very uncharitable all through the day to me on social media because of this power going off in the middle of my conference, boasting my achievements of 2 years. The very fact that they cannot even tolerate that one power cut, I think is a great certificate for this government, and the fact that we've been able to change the mindset of the people of India, to change the mindset of people in government, of public sector companies, government companies, the way they work, the outcomes and outputs that they give you. And in conclusion, I can just reiterate for some of you who may not know the story of the LED bulbs in India. India today, in less than 2 years, has expanded its share in LED business, its share in the global LED business from 0.1% to 12%. 2 years, India's share in LED expanded from 0.1 to 12%. And this was done on the back of a government-run program launched by the Prime Minister on 5th of January 2015, where we said we'll replace 770 million bulbs across the country, 770 million, plus 35 million street lights within the next 3.5 years, thereby saving $6 billion in consumer power bills, $6 billion every year, thereby reducing the requirement of power in the peak hours by 22,000 megawatts. It's a large country, so every program has a large dimension. And for those of you who are very concerned about the environment, and most of us are, reducing 80 million tons of carbon dioxide emission every year. 80 million tons when this program gets over. And will you believe what that cost of that program to the people is? Zero. And do you want to know what the cost of it to the government is in terms of subsidies or supporting this whole project? Anybody wants to make a guess? Nobody? What did they teach you at Chicago, University of Chicago? You don't even gamble? Zero. I'm not subsidizing it by a rupee, not 1 cent, not 1 dime. I don't accept mementos, so you can take it away in any case. Not 1 rupee I'm spending. We have this company called Energy Efficiency Services Limited. That's putting up the money up front to procure. And for those of you who are interested, this LED bulb, a 7-watt LED bulb, the government of India used to purchase 2 years back before I became a minister for 310 Indian rupees. That's about $4.50. Okay? 310 rupees for a 7-watt bulb. Our last procurement for a 9-watt bulb, that's 30% more illumination. 9-watt bulb is 54 rupees 90 paisa. And not that I've compromised on technical specs or qualifying criteria. I have Philips supplying it, I have Crompton Reeves supplying it, I have Osram supplying it, all AAA companies. No compromise on quality at all. In fact, Secretary Muniz of the United States talks about this program wherever he goes. He says that we have the best specs on LED anywhere in the world. The Clean Energy Ministerial often discusses our energy efficiency program as a benchmark or as the way forward. And this program a government company run by a person who left a World Bank job and came to work for a government company, Saurabh Kumar, has expanded from 600,000 bulbs that they were selling in the whole year 2013-14 to 600,000 bulbs that they are selling today, every day. 600,000 a year is now 600,000 a day in 2 years. It's a government company run by government employees, running at government public sector salaries. For those of you who say that we should just privatize all government companies, private sector is the solution to all the problems of the world, and everything should be privatized. I challenge any company in the world to match this feat. They expanded their sale 150 times in 2 years. And the cost came down by 83%. It's now less than 80 cents. And then there are taxes. Then we charge the distribution cost. We charge the profit for this company and interest cost. Give it out to consumers at $10 initial down payment, and then $10 a month for 8 or 9 months. So we recover our full investment, make a handsome profit on it, zero subsidy. Earlier those bulbs used to be sold at a subsidy, by the way. And the people get a payback of 4 or 5 months for what they are paying. The saving is about $20 per bulb or $30 per bulb, depending on each one's tariff. The tariff for this office will be different from her home, will be different from your home, may be different from my home. I get free electricity as a minister in any case. So that's possible in a country like India. It's if you recall Prime Minister Modi's slogan when he was Chief Minister of Gujarat, and then I extensively used it during the election. This country needs to look at economies, look at skill, speed, and scale. And that's all that we did to run this program. Speed, 3.5 years, this country will be 100% LED. Scale, do it pan-India. Don't look at a pilot in one street or a pilot in one city. Go for the jugular. As long as you're convinced that you have a good product and it works and it's going to save money for the consumer. And 40,000 crore rupees saving consumer bills is not a small amount for a country like India. And now at this value, if you calculate less than $1, I won't even be spending $1 billion as a nation. I'm not spending anything, but the people will pay $1 billion for all these bulbs. And for the street lights, maybe another $1 billion. But the savings are $6 billion a year. So, can there be anything better than that? But somebody had to pick that idea. Somebody had to innovate the process by which we ran the whole program. And innovation is not just technology, gentlemen, ladies and gentlemen. Innovation is in 100 forms. In this program, where was the innovation? Transparent bidding, open to everybody who qualifies for quality. No corruption. I personally call the stakeholders of this program once in 3 or 4 months to ensure that there is no corruption of even 1 rupee in this whole program. B, payment is to be made in 5 years because they wanted the warranty period. Who will trust the government with 5 years' money? Right? So it was being loaded disproportionately to the price. I said payment will go on 30 days into your bank account through an RTGS transfer. You won't even have to come to us. Even 1 day payment delay, please write directly to me. And I'll pay you interest for that, and I'll apologize publicly for that. 30th day, or in fact nowadays much before that, payment is in the bank account of the supplier. I take a bank guarantee for the quality and all that. Failure rate is less than 0.3%. They just got a firing for that. Said, when is it going to come down to 0.1%? For the LED bulbs in homes, street lights, they're still facing some challenges. We have to work on some of those technologies. We ensured that all of these suppliers get large-scale contracts. So our bidding is in millions. Every time we bid for procurement, it's in millions. So that people can plan for the future, they can plan larger capacities. They know that if they invest in this, they'll have huge business going forward. And every one of them who's now giving it at 83% lower prices is delighted about the business they're doing. They come and often crib to me, we are not making money and all. I said, don't bid for the next contract, but they bid more aggressively in the next contract. So I'm sure they must be making money. They're not doing charity for the government or for the people. But then your scale has changed. Where they were making 100,000 or 200,000 bulbs each one is making in tens of millions now. This year my procurement will be about anywhere between 150 to 200 million. Plus they're selling in the market. And my own wife, when I redesigned my home, we had bought LED bulbs at 2,200 rupees. Sometimes she curses me, but then what can I do if I brought the price down? I didn't know I'm going to become a minister and I'll get this opportunity. So there's so much possible. One can innovate in the financing models. One can innovate in procurement policies. So this reverse bidding is another innovation of the Modi government. We started it with the coal mine allotment, coal block allotment. Now private sector companies are following it extensively. I'm told a couple of foreign countries have also started reverse bidding to procure any product or service or whatever. So there's great things happening, great things possible. India today offers the largest business opportunity anywhere in the world. There's that one country which is in the years to come look at a double-digit growth for decades and a strong foundation that this government has focused its efforts on creating in the last 2 years. To my mind, is a strong enabler going forward, which will help India and the people of India progress rapidly, leverage on the best of class technologies around the world, so we can leapfrog into modern technology, don't have to relearn or go through the learning curve, bringing down their cost and making it more affordable for the people of India, because as I had set out to do, 24/7 affordable power for all in a sustainable manner, environment-friendly manner by 2022, which now I have redefined as a mission I want to achieve by 2019. If any of you is interested, I brought some books which are lying there, which is what I released today as our humble contribution to this country in the last 2 years. For those of you who don't want to carry it, just go onto my website. It's already uploaded as an e-book. You can even download it on your mobile phone and read it at leisure. So need not carry the hard copy, but I just brought it in case you're interested in having a glance. Ek copy lana? Otherwise, it's all on the website, so you can just log on to the website. So we've just taken out this Ujjwal Bharat, 2 years achievements and initiatives of the Ministry of Power, Coal, New and Renewable Energy. Thank you very much, ladies and gentlemen.
So very briefly about the foundation, I am from the Michael and Susan Dell Foundation, which is the private family foundation of Michael and Susan, which is entirely a philanthropic organization, a large billion-dollar fund based out of US. And in India, we invest in the areas of education and financial inclusion. And the approach has been that of venture philanthropy. So we invest through a lot of private equity placements, through venture capital placements in organizations which are working towards improving these two causes of education and financial inclusion. And we also work through giving large grants to organizations which are doing the same area. And just like, Honorable Minister said, if your vision is scale, if you want to solve the problem, but you want to solve solve the problem at scale. There is only one way to solve for these large social problems, education being one of our largest social problem, and that only work is to work through the government, to work with the government. And that's something which became very clear to us in our very early days of working in India, that if our aspiration is scale, if our mission is scale, we have to work within the government system and we have to work with the government system and improve and change them from within versus providing two new bright ideas which have worked at a scale of 100 schools. But when it comes to the government, I mean, they have to think about the 1.2 million government schools which service the poorest children in India today. And therefore, whatever has to work at speed, because, more generations of illiterate children cannot be afforded by the society. Just like we want the best education for our children, the poorest of the country also need better education, and they need it tomorrow. They can't wait for, the change to happen and years to come. They need to happen it with a very measurable, concrete outcome. They need to see that, their children too can participate in the knowledge economy, which is what fueling India. So they too should be here in rooms like you and me, and they need to see it happen. They need to see it happen at scale. So this is something which was very dramatic as a learning, which was very different in our approach in investing in India. And we took a very different approach to solve that problem. And if I could be slightly provocative in my comment here, we figured that, in the government, the issues are not just what needs to be done. The larger issue is how it needs to be done. So there's a huge management deficit, if I were to say, in the government system when it comes to implementing some of these very bright ideas also. And until someone actually came and worked with them to fix that management deficit, none of these pilots are going to scale. So we started with a very different approach. We hired together with the state of Haryana, the Boston Consulting Group, to come and work with the government of Haryana to improve the educational outcomes in the state and sign up for a long-term journey and say that, let's figure out what will it take to improve the outcomes in the state, not just by saying what needs to change in the classroom, how this teacher needs to be trained, what books need to be used, but why isn't anyone asking the question of academic outcomes? And to the Honorable Minister's point, things get done and things get done at massive speed in the system based on what is being asked. So our midday meals do get distributed. All our social welfare schemes in schools do get implemented. But what doesn't get done is no one comes and asks them what are the learning outcomes of your children, and therefore it never gets done. So how do you actually bring academic outcomes at the front and center of this huge education delivery system was one of the main things that we did in partnership with the state of Haryana, and that change is already becoming apparent. The school supervisors, the block education officers, the district commissioners, everybody is seeing that same source of data coming from concrete educational outcomes being broadcasted in front of them. The conversations are happening on them, those measurements are happening, but then action is getting taken based on them. So so I think innovation in government is not just about what needs to be done, but how needs to be done, and for people to be ready to walk that long journey, to agree that, this is the goal that we are working towards, and we will get there. The second thing I'll say about the innovation in government is that there's a lot of innovation which happens outside government, and the ability to make it happen within the government is again one area where we need a lot of support from today's government. Because we invest in for-profit enterprises, we see ideas every day in terms of how education can be improved. Khan Academy in itself is a great idea on how secondary education in the country can be improved. But how do you then implement, first of all, how do you imbibe it into the government system? But then how do you also adapt it to the government system is where innovation is needed. And therefore, the support that is needed from the government is how to continue to fuel the innovation in the private sector. Startup India is a great movement towards it. Digital India is a great movement towards it. But how do you actually support the startups in a real way? What you just said about 30-day payments is a real issue for startups to work with the government, or even any private sector company to work with the government. So there is a company which we know which is doing tremendous work in secondary education. The state of Karnataka has hired them to use their EduSat network and broadcast high-quality teachers into rural districts of of Karnataka over the EduSat system, which has existed for years. And their innovation, again, has been in terms of how do you structure those classes, how do you interface them, how do you fit them into the school calendar, and all of that. But again, you know, over there, the support, the reason they've been able to stay around, the reason that they've been able to deliver it is because government has also taken full cognizance of the fact that to work with a private company, we need to be supporting this private company. So I think the request that I will make is that, you know, when we are thinking of Startup India, when we are thinking of Digital India, when we are saying innovation will come from the private sector, some of these real issues which continue to hold the private sector back in full participation in the government system are also issues and elements that need to be looked upon. Couldn't agree more to say that, you know, things need to be done at scale, because, you know, what gets tested in a lab-like setting, what gets tested does not even stress the system to know whether or not this will work. So when you do a 1,000-school intervention for the state of Rajasthan, which has 75,000 schools, which apparently is the second state where we started working, tremendous support from the chief minister of the state, extremely good work getting done. Again, because from the very beginning, the minister said that I will only work at scale. All schools are my schools, and education needs to improve in all of them. And there are many things which can be done at scale. And, you know, the wonderful teams of IIC are working both in Haryana, in Rajasthan, along with the Boston Consulting Group. And we are seeing change happen. So in Haryana, already this year, it was amongst the only 2 states in India which actually improved in learning outcomes. We hope the same will happen for the state of Rajasthan as well. So we believe that change can happen. We believe it can be achieved at scale, and the energy that, you know, all of us are bringing to the table will contribute to that change. So thank you so much. It's great. It's a great pleasure to be here when IIC teams are actually presenting their work as well. And thanks for your support.